Hey everyone, so right now I'm just out here exploring Bowser's Castle because today we're going to be ranking all the 2D Bowser fights. Now these battles are some of the most... hang on a sec. Bowser, would you quiet it down here? I'm trying to do an intro. Anyways, like I was saying, these fights are some of the most... Today, I'm ranking all of the 2D Mario Final Bowser fights. All the fights from the classics and the new Super Mario Bros. Series will be included, as long as it's from a Mario game, and as long as you're fighting Bowser. If you've been watching these videos for a while, you'll know that I cover a bunch of different video game topics with some interesting special effects to accompany them. So hit subscribe if you want to see more of these style videos, because I have plenty of ideas for the future. Alrighty, let's look at the fights. Alrighty, so back at it, ranking some more Bowser fights here. But today, we're gonna look at some of the classics in the series. So classic, in fact, that this first fight we're taking a look at is from Bowser's very first video game appearance. This is the final boss of the original Super Mario Bros. Game on the NES. And even though this battle is part of such an iconic game, the battle itself is actually pretty lame. I mean, obviously this game revolutionized video games as a whole, so I don't expect it to revolutionize boss fights as well. However, that doesn't change the fact that there really isn't that much to this fight. He just throws hammers, breathes fire, and hops around the whole time. All you gotta do is get by him, hit this hammer, and you're done. This battle can literally be won in less than 5 seconds. And that's pretty well it. Don't know what else to say in this section. I mean, I like the original sprite. It's pretty creepy looking. But yep, that's the original Mario 1 boss. Next. Okay, so give that last battle some slack here. It was Mario's very first adventure. Surely this next fight we're looking at will be a huge step up and not pretty well just exactly the same fight, right? I gotta stop saying things like that. Mario 2, the boss is a bit better than Mario 1. It's really similar to the boss of Mario 1 as well. In fact, it's the exact same thing, except with some pillars in the sky that block you from jumping over Bowser, and there's this one fire bar. So because there's a bit more to it, I ranked it a bit higher. But I mean, these are such similar fights that both of these battles are interchangeable, really. And I already didn't have much to say about the first one, so now I'm in the same boat once again. Alright, enough of this. Let's move on to some more interesting boss fights now. So with those two classic Bowser boss battles out of the way, I think it's now time to look at something else other than the old Bowser being knocked off of a bridge boss battle. So why don't we take a look at the original new Super Mario Bros. Game on DS for something a bit different. Well, sorry to disappoint, but this fight again is just Bowser on a bridge that shoots fire at you and hops around. And the way you defeat him is just by getting past him and clicking the button to lower the bridge. But Bowser Jr. is here at least, so that's something new, right? But in all seriousness, this is an okay fight, but it's nothing crazy. This was the first new Super Mario Bros. Game, so this fight was like an homage to the original Mario games, so it does actually make sense here. This battle really is just the Bowser Jr. fights and the Bowser fights combined into one battle. There is some progression to this fight too, since you'll first have to deal with Bowser Jr. by throwing these shells back at him, and then you get to the main challenge, Bowser, who actually in this part is exactly like the originals, where you just have to run under him. But the main, more interesting part of this battle is when you have both Bowser and Bowser Jr. to deal with. Like, this fight's fine, I guess. You'll face some challenges here, but it lacks anything new for a final boss battle. So after all those fights, now I think I can safely say that this next one will be the most unique battle on this list so far. So why don't we take a look at the final Bowser boss battle from New Super Mario Bros. 2. So now we're looking at the boss fight of the third game in the New Super Mario Bros. Series that's confusingly titled New Super Mario Bros. 2. And this boss? Oh no, you gotta be kidding me. Starts with another battle on a bridge where you just have to get past him and jump on the big red button to kill him. What? Am I reading this script right? Why did I rank such a crappy Bowser boss battle above all the others? Oh, that's why. Yeah, this is a trend that occurred with every new Super Mario Bros. Game after the DS version, where they would first do a little homage to the original Bowser fight, then something random would happen, and the real fight would begin. So the main part of this battle is actually now more of a platforming challenge. You just keep on climbing this giant tower as Bowser keeps destroying these rows of platforms. I mean, this fight is kinda easy. Bowser just does this real slow wind up before he hits, but at least in the later parts, there's these fire statues that shoot at you, and all the platforms will fall as soon as you step on them, which always keeps you on the move. Plus, this game is on the 3DS, and this is like the only section of the game where the 3D is used well, so that's gotta count for something, right? This next Bowser boss fight is one that I thought to have a pretty neat gameplay concept in it. I mean, for the time at least. So now I think it is a great time to talk about the final boss of Mario Bros. 3. And this is the first fight that has nothing to do with Bowser standing on a bridge and you having to hit a button. Finally. The level building up to this fight was actually pretty cool too on its own, considering that this was on the NES. So when approaching the boss room, you'll first see these seemingly harmless statues of Bowser, but when you get too close, they become an enemy that shoots laser beams at you. When you get to the fight itself, Bowser will basically do two things: shoot fire and ground pound. But as you can see, a lot of the stage is made of brick this time, and wherever Bowser ground pounds, he will break a layer of brick. So then you have to pull the old bait and switch with Bowser to make him ground pound on the various layers of brick that will eventually lead him to fall to his own doom, ending the battle. This, I'd say, is a pretty unique concept for a boss fight. There's some good tension since you have to always move in the last minute to not get hit. Plus, this fight naturally becomes more and more difficult as it progresses, since you will need to jump out of bigger and bigger holes every time. This causes you to have less room to move out of the way, creating some close calls by the end of the fight. So that was a nice retro fight, but now I think it's time to bring it back to the modern era. Or, well, at least the most recent 2D Mario game. Yup, I'm talking about the final battle of New Super Mario Bros. U. Just like in the DS game, this battle has you fight both Bowser and Bowser Jr. at the same time. But the reason that this one is a lot higher than the DS version is because they didn't just combine two bosses together, but you actually have to use Bowser Jr. to attack Bowser in a pretty creative way. So in this fight, Bowser Jr. is just flying around in his clown car, and it actually looks to be working, unlike mine from the previous episode. But you have to knock him out of it as he ground pounds, and then ride it all the way up to the top of the screen to then smack Bowser in the head. Do this 3 times and you've defeated him. This may seem like a simple process, but Bowser will also try to knock you out of the air, rain fire down on the battlefield, and he can even go into his shell, which turns him invincible, while spinning and jumping around the whole stage. Plus, he is super massive, so it's a pretty big target in general just to avoid. And the setting here is really epic. I mean, for a 2D Bowser fight. I really like the backgrounds in this game in general, and same with the final boss here with these dark clouds tornadoing, yeah, sure, in the background. It's way more awesome to have the final Bowser fight on the roof of the castle rather than being inside. Okay, so here we are. It's that time in the ranking again where there's only 2 final boss fights left. And actually, they're both pretty different from one another. But why don't we start off with the second place spot runner-up, the final boss of Super Mario World. Man, the stakes were so high when you finally got to this battle, since you had to endure the long and difficult castle beforehand. So even to get here was a feat on its own. But then, lightning strikes, Bowser slowly creeps down, and the battle begins. This battle consists of 3 different phases, and for every new phase, Bowser will add a new attack. He starts off just throwing these Mecha Koopas, then in the next phase he'll drop these massive boulders down on you that he somehow fits in his tiny clown car along with himself and Peach. Okay, whatever, but then in the final phase he'll also just stomp around for a little bit. And he will just also rain down fire with faces in between these phases. I also just like the method in which you have to attack this guy as well. And this is by lobbing the Mecha Koopas right back at him. However, you specifically have to lob them at him, since hitting the bottom of the car will do nothing. You precisely have to hit the Bowser sprite, so it becomes a little game of basketball with trying to dunk on Bowser. This game was a precursor to Mario Hoops 3-on-3, obviously. And this fight just had some great details for the SNES, like how Bowser's car is constantly flying from the foreground and the background, and the car even changes facial expressions when attacking or getting hit. And that only leaves one more fight left to rank. Oh yeah, my favorite 2D Bowser fight is the one from New Super Mario Bros. Wii. It starts off in literally the same way as the other New Super Mario Bros. Games, with an homage of the original Bowser fight. However, this doesn't last long. Peach is revealed to be Kamek in disguise, and the real fight begins. Side note, but how long do you think Kamek was sitting in that cage with a wig and dress on before Mario arrived? That's one detail I'd love to know. Anyways, Kamek turns Bowser super big, and then he starts blasting fire at you, but unlike any type of fire that he's used in the past. Because this fire will actually break through the terrain, in which you then need to carve a path and continue platforming. Then the chase ensues as you break through various walls in the level. Things get more serious and tense when you get to the lava level. As the floor disappears, lava waves are constant, Bowser is right on your tail, and the only safe ground is mostly these small moving platforms. This part is the highlight of the fight. Things are tense, you don't have much time to move or think, and there's always something to avoid. Yeah, I know this battle is essentially one big platforming gauntlet, but it is a great last final run, and it's easily the most memorable part of the entire game for me. And all of this is accompanied by this really epic music track that really fits this battle, similar to the Galaxy soundtrack. Okay, and with that, now these are all the Bowser fights finally ranked. If you missed my 3D Bowser ranking, then check it out from last week's episode, and if not, I'll see you guys next week for a brand new video.